watched all the episodes, and she said that I had to try to rent a personality and have more personality in these. And she said that I do have a personality and that a couple people actually like me, and so I should try to show that in these videos. So I'm going to try to have more personality. It's hard having personality when you're reading, and it's hard just reading to a computer. This whole thing is very foreign to me. So a little bit of preface for tonight's letters. Great, the fan blew that off. Wow, all the way into the couch. So a little preface to tonight's letters. They're pretty deep. I kind of challenged the elf this week. I sent him a letter talking about charity and repentance and a few things like that, and kind of told him some struggles that I've been having with some of those things, and asked kind of what his thoughts were. So that preface will help you understand a little bit the direction that these two letters that he sent takes, and they're, as I said, a little bit deep. So let's jump right in. So while I was talking to my wife today, and mentioned to her that me, was disappointed that there hadn't been more views on some of the videos that we've been doing. And she was saying that she had to go and check her settings because she didn't get any notifications of the videos. Hopefully others of you are experiencing the same thing, but please feel free to share this if you think this content would be of any interest to your friends. Share it with them, and let's see if we can't grow this and at some point have something that's a pretty fun community. So continuing, I'm definitely going to need some material to speak on soon, brother. First, I would like to thank you for your insight on charity and what it should mean to us. I'll be the first to admit that I'm not the most charitable person out there. I typically view new interactions with people through a skeptical lens until I am fairly convinced the person is worthy of any value being placed upon their thoughts. I actually had this conversation with a couple of other inmates in here this afternoon at work. I had related a story that a man I met in state prison some years back that had a cellmate for about 8 years. The two guys were pretty close and became friends. The cellmate was getting ready for release and didn't have anywhere to go, so the guy thought he would be a good friend and talked his wife into letting the guy parole to their house and use their extra room. A few months after his release, the guy was called up to the chaplain's office and informed that his wife and 2 young children were dead. As it turns out, the guy that he talked his wife into letting stay there killed his wife and 2 children and is now serving a life sentence without parole. The guy had to serve the next 5 years with the guilt of having sent a killer into his home and lost his family. My moral to this story was, in prison, even the person that you may think the absolute best of in here may be a completely different monster in society. And until the person is in society, none of us can really speak to the true character and nature of someone within prison. This, of course, isn't to say that everyone in prison will become a violent killer. People have a tendency to show you just what kind of person, family member, or friend they are in society. In prison, it really takes an extra effort to find the true nature if you know what to look for. The first warning sign is if a person's family refuses to have anything to do with them. Another Another means is to find out how many lifelong or long-term friends a person has. If the person has none, there's a definite reason for this. These little tells can also be applied in society as well. People that don't have long-term or lifelong friendships are typically not very good friends. And not very good friends translates into not very good people as a whole. So while it isn't perfect point of view, it is very damn effective for my circle of people. I have friends I've known since I was a child. The shortest period I've been friends with someone currently is my wife, and we've been together for 8 years. And then there's the guy who's reading this, and we're working on our 9th year as friends. Wow, doesn't seem like it's been that long. I'm definitely not the easiest person to be friends with, as I'm outspoken and don't bother sugarcoating anything. So if you're one of the many people in this world that feels everyone around you has to go out of their way to be considerate of your ultra-sensitive feelings, then I'm definitely not someone you should be around, because I'll never be that guy. I'm out of time. I hope you enjoyed this one. Love you, brother. The Elf. So, yeah, that is a pretty cynical way to look at people and to look at friends. I have a wife who's probably the best person I've ever seen at making friends with people, and she's the other end of the spectrum from the Elf. She picks people up at the 7-Eleven and ends up being friends with them and taking them and doing all kinds of things for them. So I guess it takes all kinds is the point. So the second letter was just continued from the first. I'm not completely sure how time on the computer works for the Elf, but it seems like he times out, and when he times out, it's kind of a hard stop. It's the same way on the phone. When he times out, it's a hard stop. And so I guess he jumped back on a little bit later. He said, as you could tell from the previous email, I ended up just going into a new segment. I also started a new thread as I noticed we were getting low on the permissible characters, laugh out loud. For whatever reason, this website that we use has a character limit on a string of messages back and forth, and all of a sudden you'll hit that limit and it'll just stop you. And so that's what he's mentioning there. So he jumped into another thread. Anyway, to keep going, the conversation with the other two inmates continued. One of the other guys wanted to prove his point that you could gain true friendships while in prison, which I had already acknowledged, but he pointed out that he's had a couple guys that he did time with that have been released, and he said they're good friends because they have sent him money after their release. So I took it to the next level and pointed out that true friendship shouldn't be based on whether somebody sends you money. But I couldn't leave it at that. So I carried it a bit further and pointed out that half of the current friendship being discussed is still in prison, and the poisoned end most likely hasn't had the opportunity to be exposed. I qualified this by asking the friend sending him if the friend sending him money was aware that the money was being used to purchase K2, which is some kind of spray-on drug that seems to be pretty popular among some inmates. He answered no, that the guy did not need to know that the money was being spent on, since he was square, which means someone who doesn't use drugs. So this guy bases his value of friends on whether they send him money that can be secretly used to purchase drugs, with and still wanted to continue to argue that there are more true friendships created while in prison. At that point, I simply walked off. That ended that. There's no reason to have a conversation with someone who, through their own admitted example, proved the point that it isn't worth the effort and headache trying to find friends while in prison. I have a couple friends who I met while incarcerated. They were both considered as my acquaintances for several years before I considered them my friends. Maybe I'm a bit too picky, but at the end of the day, those that I end up considering as my friends usually stay my friends. So my disappointment level is pretty low. I think if people took some time and created a true value and expectation system, then they too would be disappointed much less. I'm not saying no one should try to find friends. I'm saying assess what you consider a friend should be, and then take your time and learn the people you're around before you start considering them as your friends. And if I know someone who is incarcerated and considering them your friend before they were incarcerated, let me try that again. And if you know someone who is incarcerated and considered them your friend before they were incarcerated, then take the time to send a letter, a card, or email, depending on the system they're in. Communication and contact with the outside world are very important and cherished. Inmates typically can always use financial support. Just don't be sending them any money unless you know their character, the character of the person you're considering sending the money to. And take a little time to research online the particular system they're in and what it allows and provides. When I say that, I mean every state prison system is different. Take the state of Texas, for example. Texas prisons do not pay any inmates for any of the work they are required to do. This means any snacks, hygiene items, gym clothes, drinking cups, bowls, etc. only come from funds sent in by family and friends. The prison will tell you that they provide hygiene items for all indigent inmates. Their idea of hygiene is a bar of lye soap made in the prison industries and a tube of toothpaste that works better as homemade glue than it does for dental care. Texas also charges an inmate $100 per year for medical while not paying for any work. Other prisons pay inmates a small amount. Time's up. So there's a little advice from the elf. If you know someone who's been incarcerated, he's very big on not looking for friends in there, obviously. But if you know somebody who was your friend and they become incarcerated, to reach out to them and spend time with them, because they love that contact with the outside. I know between the elf and I, we email probably 2 to 4 times a week, and I enjoy the interaction with him. But more than anything else, I know I try to bring some outside things to the inside and hopefully brighten his day a little bit and make him think a little bit. To that end, here's where you guys come in. Questions that you might have for him, whether they're questions that are things going on in your life that you'd like him to weigh in on, or things that you would just like to tell him that are going on in your life that you'd like to go through this channel that I can send to him, please comment. If you have any questions that you would like him answered, please comment and I'll pass those on to him, and that'll help him to pass a couple hours of the day, and I promise you'll get some pithy comments back that will probably be a perspective that you haven't thought of before. Well, I'm going to end it there. Again, I'm grateful that you guys are coming on here. I'm hoping you're enjoying the content. Give suggestions to me as well in the comments, and we'll incorporate things that you think will make the channel better. Again, my biggest goal is to have something that when the elf gets out of prison, I can hand over to him that might be something that'll help him as he reacclimates to the world. So everyone take care, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday. Thank you. Bye-bye.